What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Build Back podcast. I'm your host, Maximus Raminger, and today is a special one because I'm sitting down with one of my absolute rock star clients, a guy who's been in the program with me for 8 months. He's lost 60 pounds under my roof, but he is down 100 pounds total on his weight loss journey overall. But what really makes his story different from most is he already had lost 40 pounds on his own before he ever started working with me. So most guys typically would call that a win and just kind of coast through, but he didn't. He knew that there was more work to be done. So I want to make this valuable. I want to give some tips, some tricks. This guy's a macro wizard. He's eating burgers, pizza, and sweet treat every single week. And he is down 100 pounds, and also talk about how he made the call that changed everything. So I know a lot of you are listening right now that are going to relate to this one. So without further ado, welcome my man, Joseph. How are we doing, brother?
Oh, doing fucking fantastic, man. Thanks for having me on. Really appreciate this opportunity to talk about my story.
Absolutely, man. It's pretty inspiring. I'm looking forward to diving in here. And before we get into any of the deep shit, man, let's just talk right off the get-go. You have removed 100 pounds from your body, which is essentially like a small human that's just been piggyback riding you for the last how many years, man. And now they finally decided to jump off the train. Like, how is that feeling? What are your days like now? Like, give me all the details, man, because 100 pounds is pretty damn significant, man.
It's still hard to put into words, you know. I'm still kind of processing it all. It's like you said, a small human off my back. A third of my body weight is gone right now, and it's just, you know, to say that I feel so much better is an understatement. I got so much more energy, living the active lifestyle rather than, you know, just sitting on my ass and being sedentary. It's something I've come to enjoy, you know, now that I'm physically able to enjoy it, you know.
Yeah, 100%, man. And like, I'd be curious because everyone on their fitness journey, they have different things. Like for me, my moment was like, I had a picture on New Year's Eve in 2022 that I saw the next day when I was hungover. I looked at this and I was like, holy fuck, I need to change. I'd be curious now with you being down 100 pounds, do you have any photos like that or like any major things that you just like, you know, you wake up on a random Tuesday and you're like, holy fuck, my life is different now?
Yeah, I do have a photo. I actually looked at it earlier today. It's my rock bottom photo is what I call it. Me at my absolute heaviest, and I just look bloated, miserable, just depressed. You know, but I look at that photo, and I always hated it, you know, until kind of recently because, you know, coming to the realization, like, you know, the guy in that photo made that decision to make the change, to get healthier and take the first step. So I don't really hate that photo anymore. I'm kind of indifferent to it.
Yeah. Yeah. Sometimes it takes a photo like that. Everyone's got a different light bulb moment of what was there, push them over the line kind of thing. So I want to dive into that knowing that you lost 40 pounds on your own. And guys, we're born with a fucking ego, whether we like it or not. And I've had hundreds and thousands of conversations with people that they might be at that spot in their weight loss journey where they've got a massive goal set. I want to lose 100 pounds. You know, they're 20 pounds down. They've done it on their own. Like, what was that tipping point for you realizing that you didn't want to continue this journey on your own and you actually wanted to, you know, seek some help and invest in your health?
Well, because I was doing all sorts of different things to, you know, to lose the weight and not really knowing what I was doing. You know, the world of online fitness content, you know, better than anybody, is just an ocean of bullshit that you have to swim through.
Oh
And I
man.
was trying all sorts of different things. It worked for a while, then I'd stall, I'd get pissed off, I'd try something else. It'd work for a while, I'd stall. So I needed that education. I needed somebody to help me cut through all that bullshit. That's kind of how I found you. I was scrolling recipe vids, and one of yours popped up. I think it was for like this Oreo cheesecake that sounded really good, and I went and made it, and I fucked it up because I cooked it too long, and it was really dry. It still tasted good, and I ate it, and I told myself I'll just cook it a little less next time. It'll be really good. I've actually never made it since for some reason, but that's neither here nor there. But then, you know, I saved a few more of your recipe vids, made them, liked them, dropped a follow on the page, and then not long after that, you reached out to me. We started talking a little bit on and off on like Facebook, you know, just kind of getting the general overview of my story and things like that. And then just one of the next recipe vids that popped up on my screen for you, I saved it, but it also talked about the first 6 week fat loss challenge that you ran. And, you know, I saw that and I was just like, you know what? Fuck it. Why not? It's 6 weeks. You know, what's the worst that could happen? 6 weeks, not a lot of time in the grand scheme of things. You know, I'm at a little bit of money, but you know, I've spent money on worse things, and maybe this will just be another lesson on what not to do. But you know, complete opposite of that. I ended up losing 15 pounds in that 6 weeks, and you know, I just had to keep that going at that point. You know.
Yeah. 100%. And I love how you walk through that, because everyone, they navigate through their fitness journey at different points where they hit different roadblocks, they hit different plateaus. And like a lot of guys, when they hit that point, they get to 40 pounds down, they get to 20, 30, whatever it may be on their own. And then they hit that plateau, or they hit like a discouraging moment in their journey. I'd be curious, like in the pursuit of you, making that first initial investment into the challenge, were there like any hesitations for you? Like, dropping money on a coach, when you've already proven that you can lose weight on your own, like that alone is kind of a mental hurdle that holds a lot of people back, is the ego of, I've done this on my own, why not do the rest on my own? So like kind of take me back to the day that you actually signed up, man. Like what was going through your head like in that moment when you actually decided to take that next step and invest in yourself?
It was really, again, looking for somebody to help me cut through all the bullshit, because there's so many people saying do this, do that, don't do this, these foods are bad, these foods are good, don't eat this. And it was overwhelming. So I figured get a little bit of education in that 6 week challenge. But kind of halfway through it, you were telling all of us in week 3, like, this is the week, it's gonna suck, you got to push through it, but the results are coming and this and that, but it's gonna suck. And that's kind of, I got through that week, and that's kind of when I made that decision. Like, I've got to keep this going, because yeah, I got through this week. It didn't suck as badly as I thought it was going to, but I've got to keep this going. Price be damned. So I made the decision that at the end of the challenge, I was going to reach out to you and start talking about the one-on-one coaching. But you beat me to the punch. Somewhere in the 4th week, you reached out and set up a call with me. We got to talking, and it's just I wanted that level of accountability. I wanted to keep the education going. I had learned a lot. I wanted to keep going. Um, and the price be damned, it was what I was initially telling myself. And then we hit the price, and it gave me some pause for like 5 seconds there, but a line went through my head. You can't put a price on your health. And I'm not getting any younger. I'm still young enough that I can do something about this, and start living the lifestyle that I want to and get the physique I want. But I just got to make that plunge. And so I just whipped out my fucking credit card, and the rest is history.
Fuck yeah, man. That's what credit cards are for. We'll deal with it later. Let's focus on the health.
Mm-hmm.
And I love that, man, because I went through a really similar journey myself when it came to investing in my health. Because I want to dive on this too a little bit, some of the things that you tried. But even like going back and reflecting on my journey before I got a fitness coach, I was doing a lot of the same shit. I was stuck on YouTube University, watching all the videos. I was doing keto. I was doing intermittent fasting. I was doing crazy cardio sessions. And I would lose this weight and I would gain it. I'd lose it and I'd gain it. And then as extreme as I was on that end of the spectrum, then led to my demise of, all right, I can, be super restrictive and do all this shit. But then I was like, well, maybe I should try to build some muscle. Then I got into dirty bulking. Then that turned into binging, binge eating, binge drinking. And this is in the midst of college. Like I was so down bad after like I saw my photo, the New Year's Eve in 2022, where I was like, fuck, I need to make a change. I literally was donating plasma twice a week when I was in college to pay for my fitness coach. I was so broke at the time that I was like, okay, I figured out, like, I was always going for the deals. Like, if you do it this many times in this month, you're going to get 1,500. And I was like, holy fuck, this could cover a couple months of coaching. And it's like, that was like my rock bottom moment where I was like, fuck, I'm willing to do whatever it takes, because as you said, you cannot put a price tag on your health. But knowing that you were stuck in the sea of bullshit online, and that is my mission, always cutting through that, taking the no bullshit route. Because at the end of the day, this shit is simple. This shit comes down to, very basic numbers, and then just making sure that we figure out how to fit it into your lifestyle. So like, what were some of the things that you were doing before coming into the program that, they obviously got you a little bit of results, but they ultimately led that dissatisfaction where you're like, fuck man, I can't do this the rest of the way to lose another 60 pounds to get to 100 down.
Well, similar to you, I did keto and I did intermittent fasting, and it worked. If you lock in, it did work for me, but like I didn't understand anything about what a calorie deficit even was. So like it worked for a while, and then it didn't, because at one point, I'd lost the weight, but I wasn't losing anymore because I was probably eating at maintenance at that point rather than continuing a deficit or going into the different trends that we've done in my last 8 months.
Yeah.
And then it was fucking miserable. I missed my carbs. I couldn't keep that up. And so, I'd have the binge outs where I'd say, oh, one day's not going to kill me. Let me just go to McDonald's and get this big ass burger and just love life for a day. And then it turned into a second day and a third day. And then the Monday reset hit. Okay, I'm good for a few days. It's not sustainable.
Yeah. That's the biggest thing with a lot of these. Like I'm even hesitant with like the language I use, like even inside the container with clients, is like, I'm not selling you a diet. Like I'm giving you a lifestyle. I'm teaching you how to live a lifestyle, because diets always have expiration dates where, I know very few people that have been able to successfully do keto for an extensive amount of time, and they're completely okay with doing it for the rest of their life. Like, that's just unfortunately not a very realistic lifestyle for most people to live. And that's why these diets don't end up working, that all these people online try to, sell you this magic bullet, or, oh, keto, get rid of your carbs, they're the enemy. But then it's like, okay, now you've got a birthday coming up. You've got maybe your own birthday. You've got a family celebration, a holiday. You want to go on vacation. You want to actually like enjoy your lifestyle. And then you hit the fuck it button, because if you can't do the diet through all the things in life, like that is a ticking time bomb, and that is not a lifestyle. And that's, I for sure want to dive into all the different things, definitely talk about how you were able to work the macros. But let's bring it back to like the OG version of Joseph, the guy at the very beginning, before you even lost the 40 on your own. Like, who is that guy? What did he do? Like, obviously talk a little bit about the career. Like, what did your day-to-day life look like when, you had the 100 pounds actually still strapped on your back? That kid was still hanging on tight.
Oh, yeah, that guy was miserable, had no energy. I was barely surviving my work days. I work in the field of recreation. I run swimming pools, so I have a mix of duties that keep me at my desk. I have a mix of duties that keep me running around the pool and the facility and doing maintenance and things like that. And that second half of it, the physical side of it, I go down onto the deck. I walk around for 5 minutes, and it feels like I ran a marathon. It got really hard to actually do that part of my job, and I actually love that part of my job more than anything. I hate sitting at my desk doing paperwork and crap like that. So just my days, they were they were terrible. Because I'm either sitting there doing the crappy, boring paperwork, or I'm realizing that I can't move for more than a few minutes without, having to sit down and rest and being exhausted. So it just wasn't good. And that was my life for like a decade.
Mm. And I think also too, on the back end of this, because in the moment it's very hard to like objectively look at some of those things. Like, it's pretty easy for us to identify, we wake up every day, we don't have the energy, we take a picture with someone, we look back at it, we're not happy with it. But we kind of just get caught up in the comfortability of, just like you mentioned, it was a 10-year period of your life where you were just kind of stuck in this, maybe not a cycle, but just a way of living. And everyone's got their vices. Like, for me, Oreos are my vice. Like, that is like, now that I'm on the other side of like understanding how to control binge eating and my own personal triggers and things, like, what do you think were some of like the habits and the things that, obviously now you can look at it from a 10,000 foot view and be like, these were the string of actions or string of events that led me to getting to my heaviest and, being over 300 pounds? Like, what were some of the things that, maybe you wouldn't have liked to admit then, but like looking back now in retrospect, that you're like, fuck, like this was the path that I was on? I'd be curious what that looked like for you.
Just being too lazy and just not having enough energy to want to like just get up, walk into the kitchen, and boil a pot of vegetables. And I'd rather just get in the car and go to the drive-through at McDonald's, get a double quarter pounder with cheese and fries, and call it a meal. That was like 3 times a week.
Mm.
McDonald's or Wendy's or some kind of fast food joint, getting pizza delivered, rather than just getting up and spending like 15 minutes and just cooking an actual meal of nutrient dense food that would actually keep me full and that would actually be good for me.
Yeah.
That's
And it's a tough strap, man. Like, and when I got to my heaviest, like 203 pounds, like when I blew up on the back end of all this over restriction, a lot of those, like, it was the fast food meals. And I think one of the biggest things that people don't realize in hindsight is, like, even if at that point in your life you were like trying to be a little bit more conscious about the decisions, like, maybe Monday through Thursday things are good, but then it's like the work week blows up, you're stressed on a Friday, then you go have a meal like this. Like, your body doesn't respond to the amount of calories that you have in just one day. It is a weekly average. So you can undo an entire week's of progress with 2 meals. Like, when you look at an order like that, like a double quarter pounder with cheese and a large fries, probably having a drink with that, that meal is, north of 1,700, 2,000 plus calories in just one sitting. And it's not a dense food. Like you mentioned, like, you're going to eat that, and then in an hour, you're going to be fucking hungry again. And you could probably go double order that again and eat it. And then the cycle continues. But
some
it's
days
like,
I
just
did that.
right. And it's like in one day, you can just quietly undo multiple days of progress. And it's that cycle that people get in, where it's like they take 5 steps forward, but then they have a day that turns into 2, that they end up taking 10 backwards. And then they're like, fuck, like I just sprinted backwards when I was doing so good. And it's like that perpetual cycle that kind of gets brought in. And going back to that picture that you mentioned, like, was it right after that photo, like, right before you made the decision to lose the first 40 pounds, before we knew each other, before, you cut through the bullshit and you found these solutions, which we'll dive into later? Like, what was that light bulb moment for you? Was it that picture? Was it like an event? I'd be curious, like, what sparked your initial motivation that you're like, fuck, something has got to change?
So that picture is actually part of a little bit of a set. It comes with another picture that I'll talk about. I was actually that day. I was actually over at my parents' house because the other picture is a picture I actually like of myself. It's a picture of me. I was like 19 or 20 years old. It was just before I quit playing sports, and I was in the best shape of my life, and I looked really good. And I'd go over to my parents' house, and for dinner, things like that. And I'd look at that picture, and the thought was, one day I'll get back to that. And then, the years go by, I'm getting heavier and heavier. I'm still seeing that picture, one day. And somebody had made a comment. I can't even remember what it was, but somebody had made a comment that made me really just feel like shit just because I was over 300 pounds. And I took that picture of the first one I talked about, at my rock bottom picture. It was actually just in my bedroom with my shirt off. And then the next day, I kind of went over to my parents' house again, and just to have dinner. And the line changed when I looked at that picture. It was not one day I'll get back to this. It was today I'm going to start the journey to this.
Mm.
I had had enough. That other picture was just I have to make the change. This is the guy I got to get back to, and it starts right here.
Yeah, I love that, man. And everyone just reaches a different part in their journey like that. And as a guy too, like, and I also want to appreciate you just being open and vulnerable like that. Like, on the back end of us being guys and having an ego, having conversations like this aren't easy. Obviously, they're a little bit easier after you've lost 100 pounds. But it's like, these are very vulnerable moments that a lot of guys just, they don't have the courage to speak up. Like, it was really fucking hard for me mentally. And of course, my ego, for me in college, to raise my hand after all of these quote unquote successful journeys I've been on, where I've done a diet and I've lost weight, but then I'd rebound. So like, I mentally knew that I could do it, but I also mentally knew that I couldn't do it for the long term. And to be able to just put my hand up and be like, wow, like, fuck, this picture triggered me and this was the moment. Like, that's a hard thing to do. And I think in like, and obviously through the mindset stuff that we've talked about and in the program, like, I'm very big on mindset. I'm very big on mental health. And, for all the guys out here listening that may be in that position where you don't feel comfortable to speak up, like, my question and what I would impose there is like what could be the implications of this? Like, how much worse could it get if you just continue to kind of bottle things up like that? Where, like, obviously that was a very emotional moment for you, where it's like you had the one picture where it's like this was the best, and then you had that this was the worst, and it's like you just got to connect the dots and be like, there is the possibility, like, there's always light at the end of the tunnel. And I think it's very hard to see that in hindsight when you're in the midst of it, when you're in the thick of it, I guess would probably be the easiest way to say, where it's like, oh my gosh, like, life is just not good right now. And you just kind of talked about a lot of different things of, what life was like, the no energy, just not feeling confident in love and life. And, but finally coming to that realization that on the back end of making that decision, it's like, it's the one decision that you can make that seriously can transform your life. And it's like, you look back in the last, X amount of months, it's like, you're down 100 pounds, man. Like, you've completely transformed the trajectory of your life. And on the back end of that, it's like, we were just talking the other day about like your health markers. Like, you just went in and had a checkup. Like, what were some of the numbers looking like before this journey, and like, what are they looking like now? Like, what did doc have to say to you the other day when you went in for a checkup?
Oh, I fucking blew his mind on that checkup. I don't even remember what the numbers were, but I remember the words, and the words stung a year ago. Your cholesterol is super high. You're on the borderline of being pre-diabetic. We need to get your weight under control. I'm going to refer you to these specialists. They'll talk to you about like GLP-1 medications, bariatric surgery, and shit like that.
Mm,
It was terrifying. And I went and I had those appointments, and I talked, but in the back of my mind, I knew I wasn't going to do this because I did this to myself, and this was a big realization. I did this to myself. I can undo it. I can make it better, and that's what I resolved to do. I was going to do this completely naturally. No surgeries, no medication, no nothing. Just put the work in.
yeah, I love that. And it's unfortunate in the society I feel like we live in today, with obviously at the rapid pace of social media and AI. Like, we're in a very dopamine driven society, where it's like we can get things instantaneously. Like, if you have a question, like, you can literally just go to ChatGPT and get it in seconds. And that starts to just fuck with our brain on, internally with our health, where it's like, you see all of these shiny objects where it's like, oh, well, I know Bob, he took a GLP and he ended up losing 50 pounds. And, he's bragging, oh, I never stepped foot in the gym and I barely washed my food. And, a couple months went by and, now it's like, okay, well, what do we do after that? Where it's a very unfortunate reality, I think, in, Western medicine right now, that a lot of these things are just getting pushed and shelled out because it's very easy. And like you just said, fuck that. I don't want to do the easy. I want to do the hard route. And that, I think, the value that you get on the back end of making that decision of, I don't want to take the easy route, like, it does a lot to you as a person. It does a lot to your character. And I'd love to hear from you now on the back end of that. It's like, you're down 100 pounds, you made that tough decision, you were like, I want to do this a natural way. Like, what kind of like mental fortitude, or I don't even want to impose that term, but like, what is different now? Like, how do you view life and how you can tackle hard situations compared to, when you were over 300 pounds and, it didn't seem like there was light at the end of the tunnel?
It just kind of puts it into perspective. You talked about doing like the hard shit over the easy shit. That stuff is what defines you. So I have the end goal obviously in mind, what I want to look like, what I think the number on the scale, what I want to look like is. But as I've been going through it, and working with you especially, it's really more about that journey, that lifestyle to sustain it. And that's the main value I'm getting out of this. Not so much the end result. Like, it's going to be fucking great when I hit all the goals and whatnot, but the journey that we're on right now. I think I've mentioned this to you. I'm enjoying every step of it, every step of the process. Showing up every day. I'm a gym rat. I'm in there 7 days a week, whether I'm lifting or doing cardio at this point. It's just the lifestyle so much different, so much more enjoyable than what I was doing before.
I love that. Falling in love with the process, man. That's how this shit turns into a lifestyle, where obviously there's going to come a portion of this journey where it's going to suck. Like, that's the exact reason why 70% of Americans are either overweight or obese, is because it's hard. Like, if this shit was easy, everyone would have a six pack, everyone would have bicep veins, everyone would just be loving life. But that's just unfortunately not the reality of the state of the world that we live in. But it's like, on the back end of that, the proof, and the, like, an analogy that I love is like what you've been doing over the strung of these last couple months is, you're just collecting those receipts, doing the shit on the days that you don't want to, showing up when it's hard, showing up when it's difficult. Because the old version of you had a massive stack of receipts of choosing the easy way out, grabbing a McDonald's meal instead of spending 15 minutes cooking in the kitchen. Where it's like, when you were in that stage of your life, arose with a situation where it's like, you could do this hard thing that, might be a little frustrating, but it would lead to better results. It was easier to go the opposite route because you just had so much history of just data that you collected, that it's easier to take the easier route. Where now it's like, you spent a substantial amount of time stacking receipts on the opposite end of that spectrum, where it's like, you didn't want to go to the gym one day, but you still did it. You felt good afterwards. Boom. Receipt of consistency that you did shit when you didn't want to do it. Oh, you're really tired on the weekend. I don't really want to prep, but you fucking did it anyways. You got all your shit done for the entire week. Boom, another one. Where it's like, when you look now in hindsight, the receipt stack is a lot higher now on you being able to do hard things and difficult things. And like, this translates into everything in life. Like, that is why I'm so bullish that if you want to change your life, whether that be physically, financially, emotionally, all of the above, if you can get your health in check and get through tough periods of your life, you can fucking do anything. Like, you can do whatever you put your mind to. And like, you were just walking evidence and proof of that, man. And how we got there, like, this is where the value is. Like, you live a pretty fun and exciting life, man. Like, you're not eating chicken, broccoli, and rice every day. Obviously, a few of those meals, like, you know how it goes. You got to do the consistent shit. You find something that works, you double down, you triple down, you keep doing it. But like, you're a fucking macro wizard. Like, you have embodied the flexible lifestyle. And I love the pictures of the food you share in our community and all the fun stuff that you ate. Like, this is a clear byproduct of you loving the journey, is because of the hard work that, number one, you put in initially, and number two, that you continue to follow through. Like, being able to go out to eat and not blowing up, and having fun foods, but still being able to hit your macros like damn near to the gram. But you didn't come in that way. Like, tell me through, or kind of walk me through, like, the macros. Where were you at when you started in terms of the understanding? I know you mentioned like not even understanding what a deficit was, but like, what did you actually have to learn? And like, how has that changed the way that not only you look at food, but how you eat food today?
Well, the first thing I had to learn was that carbs were not the enemy. Keto was so ingrained in my brain that that's kind of like when I made the decision to to really start this and take my health seriously, I actually started back up on keto because that's what I knew. So I cut carbs down. I was feeling miserable again, but I wasn't as successful as I was with it, just because I didn't know how to track calories and anything like that. So that was the first thing, was undoing the damage of keto's mindset that carbs are good, and then just kind of understanding just how significant protein is, not just like for building muscle and things like that, but I didn't realize just the level of satiety that it gives you when you eat protein. That's why you eat a high protein diet, making the calorie deficit that much easier. Same thing with like fiber. A lot of that stays in your stomach and you stay full for a long time. And then even just with fats, I was keto is, you're eating a lot of fats with keto, but even then it's like, well, that's what I'm trying to burn. That's what the mindset is. Like, I don't want to put fat in me when I'm trying to get rid of it, but knowing that you still need the fat to regulate your hormones to keep your energy levels up, so you don't feel like an absolute walking zombie every day for having like no fat in your diet. So there was a lot that I picked up on that I had to learn about macros and how to set them so well.
Yeah. And was that like an overwhelming process for you? Obviously, me going through keto myself, I can understand going from keto to like, holy fuck, like I can actually eat pizza and I can have burgers and I can have sweet treats and like the gap between those two things for a lot of people is extremely overwhelming. And I'd love to hear from you. Was it overwhelming? If it was, how did you mentally kind of navigate through this transition?
Yes, it was very overwhelming when I first started because, I'm going in there not knowing anything outside of carbs are bad. So, and then that's when I dove into the ocean of the bullshit. Some people saying, yeah, you're right, carbs are bad. Other people saying, no, carbs are good, but eat this much fats, eat this, be in this kind of a deficit, do this workout. And, it was very overwhelming at first. I was kind of wading my way through. I was making some progress and learning a little bits and pieces here and there about how macros worked and everything like that. One of my other problems was I kept changing my macros probably like every few days because I wasn't getting the results that I wanted to in the time that I wanted to, because I didn't also understand, just it's a marathon, not a sprint when it comes to weight loss, especially significant weight loss. So by the time I'd signed up with you for that 6 week challenge and you had set my macros, I was actually pretty happy with what you set because they were pretty similar to what I had most recently landed on. It was just you had more carbs in less fats than I did at the time. So I was getting there, but not at the speed I wanted to. I wasn't getting the results at the speed that I wanted to, but kind of in hindsight, I wasn't getting the knowledge at the speed that I wanted to, and that was probably the most important part.
Yeah, and on the back end of that, understanding this shit is so important. Where it's like, obviously, there comes a level of autonomy where you're decision fatigue to the max. You're making 1,000 decisions a day. You're dealing with all this shit at work. Like the last thing you want to do is get home and try to figure all this shit out on your own. And that's exactly why people invest in their health and into accountability and having someone actually do it for you. But I think in the pursuit of having someone do it for you, it's also just as important for you to actually understand. Like you just beautifully walk through the importance of what these different macros do for your body, and that really helps to bring your mind to ease. And it's like, okay, like there actually is a reason why I'm doing this, where sometimes people take it as a grain of salt. Well, it's like, oh, of course that guy's going to say that, like he's got a six-pack, he's in shape, like fuck, I don't understand that. But when you actually take a little bit of investment in the knowledge portion of this, like that's when things start clicking and you start to understand, like, okay, like this actually makes sense. Like, oh, okay, like I can see how this is going to give me back my energy, so I'm not feeling like a zombie at work, or like, oh my gosh, like I'm going to have mental clarity, or oh my gosh, my sex drive is going to come back. Like on the back end of getting these macros right, and especially customized to you and your lifestyle, like the byproduct of that is just endless. And knowing how good you are at macros now, which I love. I'm the same way. I've been doing it for a long time. And to see your progress in the last, 8 months here of, from where you mentioned, like you didn't even fucking understand what the macros were, to like now you're having all these exciting meals. Like, what would you tell the person listening to this that would either say that, tracking your macros is extreme, or, oh, it takes way too much time to track your macros? Like if you were sitting down having a conversation with someone like that on the back end of your success, like what would you have to say?
That it really doesn't take as much time as you think to not just track your macros, but to do all of this stuff, like to get your health under control. Like, you want to work out, lift weights, build muscle, you want to meal prep and things like that. But I don't have enough time. I work too much. Another line that kind of came in my head that really framed everything and made things easier for me is there's 24 hours in a day. I'm going to sleep for 8 hours. I'm going to work for 8 hours. What am I doing with the other 8 hours of my life? You're telling me I can't spend an hour in the gym. You're telling me I can't spend an hour in the kitchen meal prepping a week's worth of food. And even if I did do that, then I've got 6 more hours to still do the things that I want to do and the things that I need to do. And when I kind of realized that and kind of framed it that way, time slowed down and just this shit just got so much easier to do and to plan around and to structure.
I love that. And the 24 hours in a day can be a touchy one for people, because then this is when people get defensive. Well, you don't know what my 24 hours look like. And the interesting part about fitness is, like, 24 hours is what we got. Like, I wish the day was 30 hours, because there's never enough time to do all the things, but you find the time to do the things that are important to you. And for the people that argue this and like, oh, tracking macros is extreme, those are the same people that are tracking their expenses, what money is coming in and out of their bank account from the job that they're working to provide for their family. So if you're tracking your expenses to make sure you stay afloat so you actually can provide for yourself and your family, like, why would tracking numbers that are a one-to-one correlation to your health any different than that? Like, that is an easy squash there. But on the back end of the time issue, it's like, when you look at it like that, like 8 hours, like, oh, well, in those 8 hours, I got this, or I've got, like, okay, let's first check the screen time. That's always going to be the first one. But it's like, are the goals really that important to you? Like, if they're not, of course you're not going to find the time. Of course you're going to convince yourself that you're too busy. But you obviously got to a point where you're like, no, this is fucking important, and I am going to spend the time. And then, like you mentioned there, like an hour, like, this is a big one for people with the meal prepping. Like, I'd love to hear, like, you spend an hour, you get your shit done for the week. Like, the ROI that you get on that in terms of time is massive, instead of cooking everything all at once. Like, kind of walk me through your process there, like in the prepping, and like how have you kind of like mastered that system?
Well, the system's kind of evolved over the months. So we started with the meal plan. I pretty much followed that to a T, and and then started subbing out some of the meals with some of the stuff that I wanted to try, recipes that I had saved that I've been aching to try and things like that. And I prep them for the week, but I don't really do like weekly meal prep, so to speak, anymore. I'll do it like the day before, but like I'll plan everything out, and it's like, well, I'm craving a burger, so tomorrow's dinner, I'm gonna cook a burger. Log that. Well, I gotta have some fries with it, so log that. I need a vegetable. Log that. Okay, there's a meal, and now I'm gonna build around that. I got the rest of my macros to play with, to do lunch and breakfast. So I'll do this for lunch. It'll be a sweet treat. I'll do one of the yogurt bowls. That's my lunch every day for the last, like, I don't know how many months. Those things are freaking amazing.
Yeah.
And then breakfast just kind of falls into place. Well, I got a lot of carbs left. Okay, let's have a big stack of pancakes then. Okay, well, I don't have a lot of carbs left. I got a lot of fat though. Let's have a big egg scramble. So kind of built it that way. Kind of the day before. I just sit down, build it out, track it, and then I prep it. That's just kind of
Yeah,
how the day goes.
I love it. And that's one of the hardest things, I think, is breaking that limiting belief around truly how simple this can get. But I love how you walk through that, because this is a hard thing for people to realize, is like, and this ties into the dopamine, the quick things, where it's like, people just write up this, story in their mind of like, I can't eat the same things every day. Like, I can't be consistent. This is how I always fall off. Where it's like, we got to like objectively look at, like you mentioned, there was a 10-year span of actions and decisions and, events that led to, not your demise, but your lowest moment where you realize things had to be different. But in order to start reworking those 10 years, you have to endure the suck a little bit. We started with the meal plan, and like, I would never want someone to live off a meal plan forever, but it's like the basic understandings of like, okay, like, I just need to get consistent with being in a deficit and tracking my numbers and just eating the same shit every day, because I can then control the variables. And it's like, when you get better at that, that's when, okay, so we got 3 meals in the meal plan. Let's remove this one. Let's just keep the consistency, breakfast and lunch, but let's change my dinner up. Let's sit down in the evening, plan that first, backlog the meal prep staples. That starts to get a little bit easier. All right, now let's remove 2 of them. We've got our breakfast. Let's have a fun lunch, a fun dinner. And it's like, dude, you eat so many fun foods. Like what are like top 5 recipes? What are some easy things that you got in rotation where you're like, fuck yeah, I'm having this and I cannot wait?
Oh well, firstly, the yogurt bowl. It started with the Oreo cheesecake one of yours, and it's just kind of evolved into so many different flavor combinations. Like I do a cookies and cream one, I do a s'mores one, I've got a cinnamon roll one. I've got so many of them. That's lunch every day. I usually throw some chia seeds in there, some Cool Whip on top for some extra creaminess, and then my staple topping to it is those Drizzlicious rice cakes. Those things are freaking out of this world.
Oh,
So that's got to be number one. Number two, probably I've been having this one kind of regularly. It's a pizza, it's just a pepperoni pizza with reduced fat mozzarella cheese. But the crust I've been making, this the simplest one I've made is on this lavash flatbread, and you just
Yes.
chuck it in the oven for maybe like 10 minutes. And what I've been doing is like I'll cut the flatbread in half, and I'll layer a little bit of cheese on it, put the bread on top, more cheese, sauce, pepperoni, stick it in the oven, and it's the texture of it's just like a regular slice of pizza almost with a little bit of that cheese in between. It's my favorite one. I've done chicken crust pizza and cottage cheese crust pizza. Love those both, but I think the lavash bread taste is there, but the ease of making it is so
Yeah.
much better. So that's number two. Number three is probably a burger. 96 4 ground beef. It's a simple swap. I make I'm chasing the double cheeseburger for the double quarter pounder with cheese meal from McDonald's flavor as best I can. I'm getting closer and closer, but I'm not compromising on the 96 4 ground beef. So that's probably number three. Number four, oh geez, probably has to be one of yours. That's apple cinnamon pancake bowl, whatever that is.
So
That
good.
thing is that is phenomenal. I love that thing. And being in the reverse diet now, I can't wait to be able to eat that again for breakfast. I've been doing the egg scrambles regularly, but that one's number four, and then probably number five is just a straight up blueberry pancake bowl. One of the first recipes that I ever went with when starting back up on this journey before I linked up with you. I love breakfast and pancakes and things like that. So those are easily my top five.
Fuck yeah, I love it. And I hope for the people listening, like hearing the excitement there and the variety where it's like weight loss doesn't have to suck. Like when you get the right macros, you get the right accountability to teach you how to do the different things. You don't have to eat chicken, broccoli, and rice 7 days a week. You can have fucking pizza, you can have pancakes, you can have burgers, you can have the sweet treats. It just matters the inputs to the outputs, having the right macros. But I love I wanted to segue into the reverse dieting, and you brought it up there, and we've gone through a couple of them. We're kind of, getting back into one now. Like for people that are just so caught in the mindset where it's like, I have to eat less, I have to move more, I got to cut things, I got to be restrictive. Like, let's go back to the first reverse diet, because I feel like psychologically it's a lot harder than it is physically. So, like that first reverse diet that we did, and I told you, hey, man, we need to start eating more food. Like, what was going through your mind?
It was initially pretty terrifying because, like you said, like I came here to eat less food and lose the weight. Eating more food is the opposite of what's going to happen. I'm going to pack the pounds back on. I'm going to fall into old habits. I'm going to binge out on things. It was terrifying, but I put my head down. I was like, I'm going to go with this. And if it sucks and I gain weight, I'm going to yell at Max. We'll figure this out. I don't fucking know, but like we're gonna do it. He hasn't steered me wrong yet. Give him the chance. Let's do this. And it ended up, the reverse diet's probably my favorite part of the whole phase. Just week after week, a little bit more carbs, a little bit more carbs, a little bit more food. I love to eat food. And then what I really come to appreciate even more than that, though, the fucking pumps in the gym, getting that extra
Yeah.
fuel going, and lifting heavier, and just the absolute awesome feeling. I'm excited to get back to that more than anything.
Fuck yeah. I love how you broke that down. It is a psychological thing. And the first time I had to go through one, I was like, whoa, like we're eating. No, we can't be doing this. And then it's like you get in your head and you get locked in. And that's when having the accountability and having someone to trust into is going to make it so much easier, because at that point, even after, just the first one, at that point, you still had more receipts of this old way of life where it's like, oh my gosh, like the mental thought, more food. Oh my gosh, like I'm trying to lose this weight. But it's like getting on the back end of that and realizing the benefits. And like for those listening, this is one of the biggest things in a fitness journey, where a lot of people, they master, quote unquote, master the calorie deficit, eating less, moving more, you lose a little bit of weight. But the reason why so many people rebound and they're unsuccessful at keeping the weight off that they lost is because they only understand one end of the spectrum. Like there's multiple phases. There's the reverse diets, and then it's like you've got the whoosh effect after that. Then you've got, getting back up into your maintenance calories. And you got a little bit of a surplus. Like this is when we start focusing on regulating the hormones, getting stronger in the gym, building more muscle, which is going to speed our metabolism up, which is going to allow us to eat more food the next time we're in a deficit, and it's going to make weight loss easier. Where it's like you've been through multiple phases of these journeys. And that's why, dude, we haven't hit a plateau at all. We've been cooking for 8 months now. You're down 100 pounds total, 60 under the roof here in the Gladiator Academy. And it's been on the back end of doing multiple reverse diets, trusting the process, and doing things like that. Like what would you say to someone who's just terrified? Like maybe they're in your shoes. They've cut the carbs. They're like, I can't put them back in. Or, oh my gosh, you're telling me to eat more calories. Like knowing what you know now after doing a bunch of reverse diets, you're having a conversation with someone, they tell you your macros or their calories, and you're like, dude, you need to eat more food. And they're like, no, I can't do it. Like, what would you tell to someone that knows that, they got to eat more food?
Trust the process, because like you said, you got to regulate the hormones, you got to get the energy back up. You can't live in a calorie deficit. It's negative energy. You're slowly starving yourself. That's basically what it boils down to. So you have to have those phases where the food comes up and you refuel your body, you reset. Your body can't live in that deficit, and then you can come back down and get back to the deficit, start cutting more weight and whatnot, and then like you said, you follow that flow.
Fuck yeah. I love it, man. And walk me through what life is like now, man. A typical day in Joseph's life. Like, you wake up compared to that day that you described, that photo that changed everything for you. Like, how was he feeling when he woke up? What was he doing? And like, what are we doing now? How are you feeling? Like, what is like the biggest difference that you've noticed between, these 100 pounds that you've lost?
Just having the energy to get out of bed. You know,
Mm,
8 months, a year ago, alarm goes off, and I hit snooze 4, 5, 6 times because I just don't have the energy or the will to get out of bed and just to do anything. I'm sluggish going about my day. Work sucks. I go through the drive-through and you get my McDonald's, come home, sit on the couch and just watch TV until I pass out, drink beer. I was not an alcoholic, but I had beer every night and that didn't help things. But fast forward to now, and I get up in the morning, I set my alarm for like 5:30 in the morning, and more than half the time, I'm up before the alarm even goes off. I do my weigh in. I go downstairs. I eat my pre-workout meal. I go hit the gym, whether it's a lifting day or a cardio day. I am in the gym by like 6:30 in the morning. And then depending on what the work hours are, I go to work. I'm productive, or I come home for a little bit. I eat my breakfast, and then I go to work if I have to work the late shift. Grabbing the meals I prepped the day before. But like, I go about the day, and I don't get tired. I don't feel sluggish. I don't get sore from just basic movement anymore, and just even the people around me kind of notice, like, Joe, you're so much more upbeat. You're so much happier these days. What's going on? Well, take a look. There's a third of me not here right now. You know, and I get home and I start the cycle all over again. I meal prep. I get my time to kind of hang out and do the things I want to do, go out with friends and have a life. Or if there's nothing else going on, maybe I pop back to the gym and just get on the treadmill just to move a little bit more and just do it all again.
I love it. I love it, man. That's the fun part. Like you get to this spot, then you when you zoom out like that, a 10,000 foot view, you can smell the fucking roses and give yourself a pat on the back. And that's something, that's why I'm so bullish, like in our community, like let's celebrate some wins. Cause it gets so hard sometimes because you just get locked in this way of living where it's like, you don't even have 10 years of experience on the back end of the 10 that you spent not loving life and being unhealthy to like experience like, dude, it's going to continue to get better. But like, even just aside from that, celebrating the wins, seeing how far that you've came, man, like aside from the 100 pounds that you've lost, like what do you think is like some of the other biggest changes that you've just noticed being a man, like in life, in relationships with people you love? Like what are some other things like aside from the scale that you've noticed?
Confidence. I don't hate what I look like in the mirror anymore. That guy from the picture where I was over 300 pounds, he's not looking back at me anymore. I like what I see, not only because it's so much better than what it used to be, but I can also kind of still see like in the future what I'm going to look like in the next few months, the next couple years. I can see it physically, mentally, and I just have a lot more confidence because of it. I carry myself with a better energy, better vibes that I'm giving off, that people have even like noticed, like your personality is a little bit different. Well, yeah, I'm upbeat, I'm happier. Life in general is just that much better at the moment.
Fuck yeah. How's the vacation? You were out on the beach recently, man, and that was a big goal we were working towards. Like, how did
Oh
that feel
yeah,
getting out there?
yeah. So my family, we go to the beach, the Outer Banks in North Carolina. We've been going for over 30 years, since I was a little kid. We always rent a house for a week, sometimes 2 weeks. But for the last, like, maybe 10 years, if not longer, like those vacations just, they don't hold the same meaning to me. They were, moments where instead of, being able to relax and have fun, I was miserable because I was trudging out on the beach, 300 pounds, sweating my ass off, not wanting to do anything, just wanted to sit there. How long can I sit here before I can go back and, not piss off my family and things like that? And I never wanted to take my shirt off. Even when I did go out and get in the water, I had a rash guard on because I just didn't want to, be seen that heavy set. I go down this year, I'm down 100 pounds from, last year when we went down. Complete night and day difference. No shirt on whatsoever. The trudging down to the beach, it's easy. I'm spending hours in the water, hours out on the beach, just moving around, having fun. It's just a night and day difference, and it was the most enjoyable vacation I've had in the longest time. I can't remember the last time I had that much fun on a vacation.
Oh, dude, I almost started tearing up here listening to that, man. I relate to that. When I was younger, I would always wear a rash guard, like when I was like a chubby kid, because I was just, I was afraid of, what are people going to say? I hated how I looked and things like that. But that is just such a liberating feeling, man, when you're able to erase 10 years of feelings like that, where it's like, those are special moments. And I went to Outer Banks for the first time a couple months ago. Beautiful area, and like, oh my gosh, knowing that that's the history for you the last how many years, those vacations. But like, man, the weight off your shoulders, not even just physically but mentally, the emotions that come behind it, man, like it's such a profound thing to be able to experience like that. And it's just a fucking massive byproduct, man, of all the hard work that you put in, which I'm so fucking proud of you, man. It has been an absolute blast, and I'm so excited for the next chapter, man. Like, you're on the back end of this, you're 100 pounds down, the high, you're still rocking, you're rolling, but like, what's next for you? Like, what are your goals? Like, now that you've accomplished this, like, what do you want to accomplish next?
The next immediate goal, I think I've told you about this one, is I haven't been able to do this since I was in high school. I want to do a pull up. It's something simple like that. Something it's two little words. I want to do a pull up, but it's a big deal for me. I wanna be able to get back to that. I can get about halfway up now, which is a hell of a lot better than what I used to. But that's kind of the next big goal. And then we're coming down the pike here of the initial goal I initially set for myself when I started this iteration of my fitness journey. I wanted to get down to 200 pounds. We're 15 pounds away from it. I wanted to hit that by the end of the year, and we are well going to hit that before the end of the year for sure at the rate that we're going. So
Oh,
those are
fuck
those are
yeah.
kind of the next two. And then kind of within the next like 12 months, I don't think I've shared this one with you, but that Outer Banks trip is booked again, same week. I'm going down there with a six pack.
Yeah.
I'm going
Let's
down there with a
go.
ripped ass six pack. So those
Fuck
are what's
yeah.
next.
Fuck yeah, man. I absolutely love it. Let's go. We got all kinds of time to make it happen, man. And I'm even stoked to, I'm just as stoked as you are, man. Cause like the energy, the vibrate, like I'm big on energy frequency, and like, I know how much this means to you, man. And I'm obviously going to do everything in my power to make sure that we make this shit a reality. But
Hell yeah,
bringing
hell
things
yeah.
to a close here, man. I appreciate your time, of course, but just a couple last questions, man. And like, I feel like these ones are the ones that matter the most for the people listening. Like, there's a dude listening to this right now who's exactly where you were right before you invested in the program and working with me. Maybe he's lost 20, 30, 40 pounds. He's proud of the work that he's put in, but he's stalling. He knows that he needs more. He knows that what he's doing now isn't going to get him to exactly where he wants to go. And, maybe he's on the fence about actually investing or hiring a coach because part of him thinks that he'd be able to do everything on his own. Like, what would you say to that kind of guy?
You can't be afraid to ask for help. Okay, you're not getting the results that you want, so why not reach out to somebody that can help you get there? That's just kind of where I was at, and that was one of the driving forces for me to reach out to you. You talked about like the vibing and the energy and whatnot, and I love the vibe that you give off, and that's what kind of drew me to you as well. But like, I needed the help. Just it's not a moment of weakness to ask for help or realize that you need it. So to the people that are listening that are in that boat, don't be afraid to have a conversation with somebody. It's free to talk to somebody about having, getting that kind of help. Like, it didn't cost me any money to have that initial conversation with you. So have the talk, reach out for help. It's okay.
I love that. It's a big struggle in the mental health field, is just coming to the conclusion that it is okay to be struggling. It is okay to be in a rough spot. And it's just as okay to ask for help to get yourself out of that spot. And
It's not
for
a
the
moment of weakness. It's a moment of strength when you can realize that I need the help. I need to reach out and ask for it.
fuck yeah, I love that. That is the beautiful way to put that, man. And last one for you here, brother. If you could, sit across from the table from the guy that was the day before you signed up with me, like what would you tell him right now, knowing everything you know now?
Well, firstly, I'd thank him because that's the guy that made the step that made the decision that changed my life. That I can be the person that I am today, and that I can continue working towards being the person that I want to be a year from now, sitting with a ripped ass 6-pack on the beach at the Outer Banks in a year. So I would
Yeah.
start by thanking that guy because he made the right decision. And I would, assure him that, things are going to get better. Like this road's going to be tough, but it's going to be worth it.
Mm. Beautifully spoke there, man. Well, Joseph, my motherfucking dog here, I appreciate you coming, man. I thank you for your
Yeah, man.
time and coming on and being real and honest and vulnerable, man. Like being guys, it's not easy having these conversations, but I know that this story is going to hit a lot of dudes exactly right where they need to hear it, especially the ones that have done some of the work and wondering if it's worth even going deeper, man. So for everyone that's listening here, if Joseph's story hits you in the feels, you relate to any of it, I would love if you would drop the podcast a follow, drop a rating, share this to your story, or even with one of your friends, one of the guys that you know needs help that might be afraid for asking. Someone in your life needs to hear this, man. And if you were where Joseph was at before he made the call, you're down 20, 30, 40 pounds on your own, you're looking for that next step, and you're looking for some accountability, I've got some information in the description if you'd like to have a conversation with me. But nonetheless, man, I appreciate you for your time, Joseph. And this has been the Built Back podcast. And I'm your host, Maximus Ramiger. Thank you for coming on, Joseph. I appreciate you, brother. And I'll catch
Hey,
you on the
man.
next one. Peace.